Welcome to the Dan Norton Show, where I promote Ayn Rand's secular, pro-happiness, pro-capitalism philosophy of objectivism. It is Monday, August 11th, 2025, and it's a different day, different time than usual. So we'll see if some new people show up today. I invite you to participate in the chat. You can help shape the show with comments, questions by calling in. I have pinned in the chat the instructions on how to call in the show. We had some callers last time, I think, but I invite you to engage in either of these ways, or you can just watch anonymously or not. And thanks for any likes on this stream. That'll help promote the show in the algorithm. Okay, so I can give you an update on what I've been reading since the last show. I often do reading updates in these shows, but I want to give priority to people in the chat. So if I see some chats here, then I will engage with those. But usually it takes a little while for people to start chatting. So in the meantime, I can give you some updates on what I've been up to. So I have continued to read about the early history of America. Last time I talked about reading about the Constitutional Convention in 1787 and the statutes at large. And those were the laws that um, are passed by Congress, and they're distinct from the U.S. Code. That was something I learned recently, and that the statutes at large are organized in chronological order, whereas the U.S. Code is organized by topic. So I read a bit more about the uh, actually I went even further back since my last show. So I went back and read about the first sorry, not constitutional convention, um, Continental Congress. It's easy to get mixed up with these words. They sound similar, all these C's. Constitutional Convention and the Continental Congress. Um, the Continental Congress, there were two of them, or I guess more than two, depending on how you count them. So there was one in 1774. That was the first Continental Congress, which was, I think that was prompted uh, by the Intolerable Acts. Britain had passed what's called the Intolerable Acts or the Coercive Acts in 1774. I'm just looking on Wikipedia now, make sure I got my timeline right, make sure I have my cause and effect right. Um, yeah, it looks like the First Continental Congress was in reaction to the Intolerable Acts passed by Britain. Um, so I read the article on the First Continental Congress, but then I got interested in going even further back and learning about the Navigation Acts. So these were acts that Britain passed starting in 1651, I believe, which regulated trade, all kinds of rules on shipping, who you could ship to, It was a very mercantilist society starting in the mid 1600s. And that's part of what angered the American colonists. They were upset with the all the restrictions on shipping. They have to be go through British ports sometimes. They can't just go straight from some other, I guess, whatever country the good originated from that's being shipped. It has to go through London and then be taxed there. And just all kinds of rules. It's um, so I've actually been reading some of the original laws, like not just about the laws, but the laws themselves. I've been reading the I can read you some of the titles. So the first one from 1651 is called An Act for Increase of Shipping and Encouragement of the Navigation of this Nation. And there was the one I'm reading right now is from 1663, which is just called An Act for the Encouragement of Trade. And here I can just give you a little flavor of it. I don't want to read a lot of this because it's kind of hard to understand and process, but just to give you a little taste. So this is from the 1663 Navigation Act, and it's divided into sections. This is section 5, which is titled Proviso for Shipping Salt for the Fisheries, Madeira Wines. Madeira is in a set of islands off the coast of Africa, I think. Um, and then wines of the Western Isles. Maybe that's the Caribbean. I'm not sure. Servants and horses and victuals. I think victuals is just a term for food or provisions of Scotland and Ireland. Okay, I'll just read that one more time since I interrupted in the middle of it a couple times. Proviso for shipping salt for the fisheries, Madeira wines, wines of the Western Isles, servants and horses and victuals of Scotland and Ireland. Okay, that's just the title of section 5. And then um, here's section 5 itself. It says, provided always, and be it hereby enacted by the authority aforesaid, that it shall and may be lawful to ship and lade in such ships, and so navigated as in the foregoing clause is set down and expressed in any part of Europe, salt for the fisheries of New England and Newfoundlands, and to ship and lade in the Madeira's wines of the growth thereof, and to ship and lade in the Western Islands or Azores wines of the growth of the said islands, and to ship, take in servants or horses in Scotland or Ireland, and to ship or lade in Scotland all sorts of victual or the growth of production of Scotland, and to ship or lade in Ireland all sorts of victual of the growth or production of Ireland, and the same to transport into any of the said lands, islands, plantations, colonies, territories, or places, anything in the foregoing clause, in the contrary, in any wise notwithstanding. Period. That whole thing was one sentence. So this is not an easy document to read. It's written in old-fashioned English, and I guess their rules of punctuation were different. Or I don't know if this is partly an artifact of the software that was used. I think this document was maybe there was some optical scanning done and then some software. I don't know if AI is involved. Just produce this text, which I guess is easier to read than the original. But anyways, there's just a little flavor of the kinds of laws that England had on shipping, and which were eventually protested by the American colonies, and that contributed to the American Revolution, these sorts of laws. So that's some of what I've been reading about, most of what I've been reading about recently. Took a little break from the Bible. I was last in I started reading Deuteronomy. I got up to chapter 7 of Deuteronomy. And this is where the Israelites are on the threshold of entering the promised land, and they're told the Ten Commandments are reiterated, as well as a bunch of other commandments. 613 in total, according to Moses Maimonides' calculation, I think, throughout the Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible. All right, so that's most of what I've been reading about. I've also been active on X, as usual, something I like to do some at least of every day. And maybe today I will go through some more comments, maybe do some replies live to some of my posts. But again, I do want to give priority to people who are here live watching. So I invite you to participate in the chat or call in. All right, I hope you're hearing me. Why is this? Oh, I had I was just doing a test on my end. It was muted, so I didn't hear it. But yeah, sound is working. Maybe I'll just mention one other thing before going to Twitter. I saw a um, carjacking yesterday on YouTube. There was a live police chase going on. It just popped up in my feed, and I don't know, for about an hour maybe I watched it. It went on for a while. Um, that was interesting. I had never seen a well, I guess I have. It was the second live um, coverage of a police chase I've seen. I saw the O.J. Simpson police chase way back in 1995 or 96. So 30 years ago. But just yesterday, I saw another one. And this one on my YouTube feed. There was someone, or I guess two people in Southern California. Um, they they carjacked someone. I think they had weapons and they stole someone's car in Lancaster, California, which is a pretty remote area, I think, in Southern California. And then they drove it all the way into Los Angeles, and then I think it's one of its tires was giving out because it had hit a strip of nails or something. I think the police had laid it down to mess up its tires. And so I guess once its tire gave out, they started looking for other cars they could carjack. And they tried one or two, and but I guess the windows, the drivers of the cars, they tried to. Oh, well, actually, one other thing I should mention before this, they went the wrong way on a freeway, and I guess that was a way of getting away from police because they didn't think the police would follow them if they started driving the wrong way on the highway. So they did that, and then I guess that, and there's a helicopter following this the whole time, so you can watch this. Maybe I'll put a link to it in the chat. Um, but they, I guess, going the wrong way on the highway, some of the cars going the correct way slowed down, and Some of them pulled off to the shoulder, and I think a couple of those cars, the the suspects who carjacked the first car, um, they just drove right up to these cars that had pulled over and tried to carjack another car because it's the wheel in the first car that they carjacked blew out. And the first couple people I think they tried to carjack on the freeway, they had their windows rolled up and they weren't getting out of their cars. So the criminals, they just gave up and then uh, drove a little bit further, and then eventually they stopped an 18 wheeler or a semi, I guess they're called also, and like nose to nose, they just drove right up in front of it. It had slowed down, I think, to a halt, and I maybe they just drove right in front of it so that it couldn't go anywhere. And then they went up to that uh, to that semi, and the driver jumped out. I guess he left his keys in, and I think he was okay. He wasn't harmed, but he surrendered his semi truck to them, which turned out, I think, to be a milk truck. It was this huge, had this huge container of milk in it, or a couple of containers. I don't know how many tons of milk it held, but anyways, they carjacked or truck jacked that, and then they started driving that, and they went all the way to downtown Los Angeles, and they were driving this huge milk truck through the streets of downtown LA. And they didn't crash. It was I don't know if they had experience driving trucks this size, but anyways, um, for I don't know, half an hour, they were just driving around Los Angeles, and the police were following them. I guess they didn't want to drive in front of it because maybe that would cause damage or injuries or something. I don't know what the reasoning was, but for an hour or so, the police were just following this milk truck through downtown Los Angeles, going through all these turns, and um, eventually, and there's a helicopter following it with a spotlight on it the whole time. So what the people in the milk truck eventually did is they went to uh, an overpass, or they went under an overpass so that the helicopter who was following them the whole time and had a spotlight on them could no longer see them. And then once they got under this overpass, they got out of the milk truck and then carjacked another car. This time it was a white car. Well, it was like a truck. Um, and so they carjacked three times in one night. So now they're in the third car, and then they proceed driving in that. And then the helicopters, once it exits the from under the overpass, the helicopter is able to follow it again. And then they drive this. They're driving around downtown Los Angeles for another, I don't know, 20 to 30 minutes maybe. And um, they eventually get to a street where they start doing all these U-turns. They'll drive half a mile or something, and then they'll do a U-turn, and then drive another half mile, do another U-turn. And at this point, I think the police, they've lost the police, maybe because the police were investigating this milk truck or something, and it took them a while to track down this third white car that they carjacked. Um, so uh, but eventually, so they're doing this series of U-turns on one street. Maybe they're on the phone with someone trying to arrange a getaway car, but a fourth vehicle. But anyways, they come to uh, another overpass, or what? I don't remember if there was two overpasses involved in this chase or just one. But anyways, I know when they were in the third carjacked car, the white one, they eventually um, get under an overpass again so that they can't be seen from above by the helicopter. And then they, well, it's not clear what happens after that point, but they get away. There's the commentators from the helicopter who are thinking, well, maybe they got out on foot once they got under the overpass and they got out on foot at this point. But then I watched another video later from a different perspective, and it looked like maybe they got into a getaway car when they were under the overpass, which then sped away, and they just left this third car rolling. Like it looked like maybe they just put it in neutral and took it to a slow speed, jumped out of the car as it was still rolling forward, and then as it was slowly rolling forward, they jump out of the car, get into some getaway car, and speed off. And then the police catch up to where the rolling car is, but there's no one in it. It's just rolling by itself. And then they eventually figure out there's no one in it. And but they've lost the suspects at this point. So that was the car chase. And I watched that last night. I don't know what the update, if there's an update on it. I don't know if they have made any progress in catching these people. And I don't know that this has any philosophic significance. My show is mostly about things with philosophic significance, but I guess one thing I was thinking that's maybe related to my show is that it's a live show. So this was going on live, and it was quite engaging. And I wondered like if that the fact that it was live and you don't know what's going to happen next, right? Um, makes it harder to turn off and stop watching. And I was thinking, well, maybe that's why I've been getting a lot more watch time on my YouTube channel since I've started live streaming. Because if you're doing a live show and you don't know what's going to happen next, and that makes it more engaging. Um, I don't know that, yeah, not that that really has philosophic significance that I see right now, anyways, but um, maybe it at least has some kind of marketing significance. Like um, there's something psychological, or there's to learn from this. Like if you do live shows, that's more engaging for people psychologically than if you just have um, pre-recorded videos. Anyways, um, that was the last thing I saw last night. I said I might put a link to that in the chat. I think I'll do that in case you're curious now to see this. Just give me a moment. Okay. Going to my history page on YouTube so I can find this. Oh, here it is. Carjackers steal 3 vehicles, including Big Rig, during LA pursuit. Okay, so actually, I'm gonna post a different link first. I think this is the first one I watched. It's called Full Chase. Armed suspect steals 2 vehicles during pursuit. Although I think it was 3, but this is the first one I watched. Let me include the title here too. All right, just put it in the chat. And then a somewhat different version where I think you can, maybe it's only in the second one I'm going to post that you can see the getaway car, or at least what some people suspect was a getaway car. You can see if you look at the comments, you'll see a bunch of people saying, go to the 1 hour and 13-minute mark, and you can see it turn left onto the freeway. So that's going to be in the second video. Okay. So there's 2 videos I watched. All right. So no chatters yet, but it looks like there's a couple people watching or listening. So maybe that was a less interesting intro than I usually have, because usually I have more people than this at this time in the show. But oh, so it looks like a couple more people just came. Okay, so since I don't have any chats yet, I think I'm just going to go to X and show you some of my recent comments on X, and I'll do some live replies. But please do participate in the chat at any time. I invite you to. I encourage that, and then I'll come back to the chat and I'll engage with that. Um, I guess I'll have fewer Europeans today because I started later than usual. 3:30, that's already bedtime, I think, for many people in Europe. But on the other hand, I might get more Americans, like maybe people who are usually at work when I stream. Maybe they'll be able to attend now because it's after work hours, at least for people on the East Coast, normal work hours. Okay. All right, so let me share my screen. Actually, before I do that, I think I want to filter out any troll comments. I could do a poll, actually. Maybe I should poll my chat, even there's only a few people here right now. Maybe you want to see the insults. I was thinking maybe I should um, block the people on X who their comments are just insults, but maybe that would actually be interesting for you to see. I could also just read them and then without showing them. Okay, I'll do it. I'll do a quick poll in the YouTube chat. I'm not necessarily gonna let the poll influence my decision, but I am curious to see what people think. Do you want to see insults, name calling, profanity, etc. on X, or maybe on X? Or should I block those people first before I show you? I guess I'll add an option for maybe. So you can choose yes, no, or maybe. I'll say on my X comments. Before I block those people. Oh, now it's too long. I only get 100 characters. Okay, let me see if I can rephrase this. Okay. Um, do you want to see insults, name calling, profanity, etc. on my X comments before I block the people who makes those comments? But I don't have room to say that in the poll because it only gives me 100 characters. Okay. I just started the poll, so now you can vote on that. Looks like we have one vote so far. I'll give it another minute or two. Thanks for being here, by the way. Those of you who are here live. I saw Yaron Brook had a stream earlier today. I think he streamed from about 12 to 2 Pacific. Maybe some people that was enough for them for one day of objectivist content. Let me see if I can get my actually here's one thing I can do while I'm giving the poll another minute. I can make sure my Zoom settings are correct in case I get a call later. Okay, Zoom settings are good. And now I'm going to go to Twitter. Oh, good. 2 votes now. Okay. So, and they're both for no. I guess you can't see the results yet, but I think once I end the poll, they'll show up for you, the results. Okay. I just ended the poll. So both people said they don't want to see the insults, name calling, profanity, etc. Okay. Then I think I'm going to do that. I might have done that anyways, but I guess this gives me additional reason to screen those out first, as I did last time. One reason I like doing that is they're just, I guess I don't want to give that kind of stuff a platform, give it less oxygen, less publicity to people like that. Um, I guess one reason you might want to see it is just you get some firsthand evidence of the kinds of things people actually say, but maybe that gets old soon. Um, all right, so let me go to one of my recent comments on X. Okay, content. Content tab in my analytics. There was one, I want to go to one that has a lot of comments. I think it seems like the comments on immigration tend to get the most replies. So that's the one I'm gonna There's one or two in particular I'm looking for. Okay, here's one with, oh, 11 replies. That was a little sub-thread. Okay, here's one with 34. Okay, yeah. Let me bring this one up. There was only one person in there who I replied to. But there were a bunch more people. But the one person I did reply to, I ended up blocking him. That's often how it goes. It starts off okay, and then eventually, after a few rounds of back and forth, it devolves, and the person starts being rude or disrespectful, and then he gets blocked. And that's what happened in this case. But let's see what else is in there. Okay. Just taking a quick glance to see if there's any insults, profanity, etc., that I want to screen out. Okay, I think that's about half of them so far. No problems. Oh, here's one. Okay. Um, all right, I'm gonna block this person. Block. Oh, here's another one using profanity. Another person using profanity, dropping F-bombs. Block. Okay. Few more to look through. Okay, there's an insult. Block. Okay, that one's fine. That one's kind of borderline. I guess I'll leave it. Okay, here's another one I need to block. Um, that one's a little bit borderline, but it's kind of vulgar. So I don't think I'm gonna. I'm just gonna block that. Okay, here's one with some profanity, but not directed at me. Um, but maybe I'm not sure whether to block that one. I'll leave it for now. I don't know if I'm going to get through all these anyways. I might just go through a few of them. I'm looking at the very end. There's only one more here to look at. Okay, this one is rude and profane, disrespectful. Okay, I'm going to block that person. All right, so that was about 5 people I blocked out of 30 some. But now I can share the screen without that stuff in it. Let me just come back to the chat, see if anything is going on there. Oh, Theo is here. Hi, Theo. He says something about art. The prevailing view is that art is whatever you feel it to be. Where do you draw the line between art and non-art, specifically in painting? Okay. Thanks for the question. I'd like to spend some time on that, but I wonder if I should, since I was just going through the X posts, maybe I should do some of that before I get to your question. Uh, Let me just, I'll come back to your question in a few minutes, Theo, if you're still here, or even if you're not still here. But let me just, I want to share my screen and go through at least one or two of these X replies before I get to your question. Which is not to say I'm going to necessarily have, uh, I don't know how much else I have to say on your question, but um, I have to consider it first. But right now, let me share my screen. All right, so now you can see. I'm just opening up my phone so I can see too on my phone. So now you can see. All right, so here is the post I was responding to. Miles Taylor, USA, who I don't know who this guy is. Ex-national security official, New York Times bestselling author, was anonymous, now encouraging people to take their masks off. Okay. And he has over 200,000 followers. And he says, Washington Post says, White House fired IRS chief after he resisted sharing sensitive tax data with Department of Homeland Security to hunt immigrants. Trump is weaponizing the IRS. Mark my words, soon they'll be doing this to his political enemies. And then I say taxes and deporting peaceful people are irrational. It's bad to deal with people by force. So I wasn't responding to the particular things he was talking about with the IRS chief and Trump weaponizing the IRS, according to him. I was just commenting more generally on taxes and deporting peaceful people. And I said that doing that is irrational because it's dealing with people by force. And then I got 34 reply threads to that. And here's one from Luis, who I think he's on my side. He says, whatever happened to America? People answering here are just tribal, like angry beasts, and they think you are a Democrat. Oh, yeah, there were some people who called me a leftist or a Democrat. I don't remember exactly, but often if you oppose Trump, you're automatically labeled a Democrat or a leftist, though I am certainly not that. Okay, so um, I gave that one a like. Some of these others, though, I think most, if not all, the rest are not on my side. So here's someone, Richard Abbott, saying deporting criminals who invade our country is very rational. Supporting them is suicide. So he's talking about criminals, but I was talking about, I specifically said deporting peaceful people. I think a lot of these people who reply, they don't acknowledge, or they're not aware of the distinction, or they're not paying enough attention to the distinction I'm drawing, or that should be drawn between deporting criminals and deporting peaceful people. Now they might say everyone who, even someone, they might say all illegal immigrants are criminals, but you can criminalize anything. That doesn't mean it's good that it should be criminalized. So that maybe that's where this guy is coming from. Invade. That makes it sound kind of military like. But if someone is just coming here to live and work, is that an invasion? Is that like Hamas invading Israel? I think this term is somewhat loaded. So I'll ask this guy, uh, are peaceful people criminals? So maybe you'll say yes if they broke the law. And if he says that, if I do engage another round with this guy, I don't know if I will. I don't know if he'll reply. But then if he says lawbreakers are criminals, then maybe I'll say something like, what if you break unjust law, like a law that permits slavery? Like if you're enslaved by some law, maybe if you're a black person in the US, the pre-Civil War, if a law says that you can be a slave and then you break that law, does that mean you're not a peaceful person? Should you respect a law that makes you a slave? So I might go that direction. But I'll just start with this. Okay, let me respond to one more, and then I think I'll go to Theo's comment. Uh, so this person says, then Congress should change the laws. Well, yes, it should. Um, Looks like somebody else replied to him also, because there's a one here, but I'm not going to go to the other. I don't want to see what the other reply is right now. I'm just going to. Oh, I guess that shows up. Yes, Congress doesn't want to change the laws. Both sides have had the chance when they hold or held the majority. Okay. I'm just going to say yes, it should change the laws. And maybe I'll add, do you think uh should deport peaceful people? Get his take on that. He's not really taking a position himself. So I think someone who says this kind of thing might actually be sympathetic to the law as it is, but maybe he's just going along with whatever the law is. Given the laws the way they are now, we should deport people. And if you want to change them, fine, go ahead and do that. But I think it's less interesting as to, what is the law right now compared to what should be the law. I mean, they're both interesting in a way, but um, what I want to see is what he thinks the law should be, and then that's what because whatever the law should be, that's what we should aim for. And we might have different ideas of what the law should be. So if we have different views on what the law should be, then we can debate that. All right. Let me come back to the chat. Oh, Ben Franklin is here. He says, look up case 1:16, and he gives a long list of numbers. If you want to see who the real criminal is, he's just racist. You're not going to get in a gotcha. You're not going to get him in a gotcha. Maybe. Maybe he is. I don't know yet. I don't have evidence yet to say he's racist. What is that case you cite? I don't know if I want to look that up now. All right, but let me see if I have anything to say on Theo's comment. He says, the prevailing view is that art is whatever you feel it to be. Where do you draw the line between art and non-art, specifically in painting? Well, the first thing that comes to mind is, as a possible answer, is that it needs to be representational. Like it can't just be blobs or smears. I don't think I would call that a painting. It's paint, but I don't think it's art if there's not any kind of attempt at representing something. Now, a thought just occurred to me, like, well, maybe he's like Jackson Pollock. Maybe someone like that is trying to represent his chaotic mental state, or maybe he has wild emotions or something, and he thinks smears or paint splatters on a canvas represents that chaotic emotional state. Um, but I wonder if it's just subjective. Like if you have to be in his head to know what it represents, like maybe he's just trying to pull a joke on people and um, pretend like he's doing art where he secretly knows, this is garbage. It's not representing anything. I'm just seeing what I can get away with here in convincing people that it's art. Um, so if you can't tell from a third person point of view, if you have to be in someone's head to know whether it represents something, then maybe it doesn't qualify as art. Maybe it has to have some amount of objectivity to it so that it's not just entirely arbitrary. Like I once remember a discussion on Harry Benswanger's forum, hbletter.com, about music and modern arts more generally. And someone made the point that if you can't distinguish between like a cat just walking across a piano keyboard and uh, like something that somebody wrote, like imagine you wrote down the notes, a composer wrote down the same notes um, that would be played, uh, they would match the way the music came out when the cat just walked across a piano keyboard, um, then I hesitate to call that music. Um, if you can't distinguish just a random collection of sounds from, like, if you don't know whether or not that was intentional, if you have to be in someone's head to know it. Um, so I think maybe there has to be some kind of ability to know objectively, meaning like without being in someone's head, the composer's head, to know whether it represents something. And if you can say from, if you can say that it's representing something, or there's some intentionality behind it, there's some purpose, then maybe that's some kind of minimum threshold something has to cross in order for it to count as being art. This is kind of off the top of my head thinking on this question, Theo. So those are just some initial thoughts um, on where I might draw the line between art and non-art. So I guess if there's some kind of intention to represent something, and it's clear, anyone can discern that there is an intention, then I'm thinking maybe that's where I would draw a line. Or at least maybe that's a necessary but not necessarily sufficient condition of something being art. So maybe there are also other characteristics it needs to have in addition to being objectively discernible as purposeful or intentional from the non-artist point of view, from some third person. But maybe there are also other characteristics. But I guess at least that I think might be a characteristic that distinguishes art from non-art. Okay, Theo, I see a bunch more from Ben here, and then Theo came back in. Let me just read this one from Theo, and then I'll look at some of Ben's. Theo said, yes, but what actually distinguishes Jackson Pollock's paintings from fine art? Well, what about the thing I just mentioned? The fact that, well, I'm not sure. What do you mean by fine art? Um, Fine art means oh, sorry, I forgot to stop the screen share. I think I'm still sharing the sorry about that. The Twitter page was up the whole time I was talking about art. I meant to stop the screen share a while ago. Um, I was going to look up fine art to see what the definition of that is. So here's one definition Google gives: creative art, especially visual art, whose products are to be appreciated primarily or solely for their imaginative, aesthetic, or intellectual content. Uh, okay. Well, at first you were asking about the distinction between art and non-art. Now you're asking about fine art, which I guess is a somewhat different kind of issue. Um, so I gave you something to just as to why I would distinguish Pollock from art, why I think it's plausible to consider it non-art, but I don't know that there's something additional I would say distinguishing it from fine art. It's just it doesn't qualify it as art at all. I don't think, or at least I'm not convinced that it does. I would want to hear an argument for that. I mean, if that counts as art, then can't anything count as art? And then there's just no doesn't it just become completely arbitrary? And if anything is art, then I guess art becomes a meaningless term, right? It doesn't pick out anything as against anything else. So what are we talking about? Um, you say I agree with you, but my distinction is fine art versus decorative art. Um, oh, so you think Pollock's paintings might be decorative art? Uh, maybe decoration. I don't know if I would call decorations art. Ayn Rand discusses decorations, I think at least a little bit in the Romantic Manifesto. That's where she talks most about art for anyone who didn't know. And I don't know if she considers decoration in in art at all. I thought she might have contrasted decoration with art. It's something with some kind of utilitarian purpose, but it doesn't have any metaphysical significance, I think. Like it doesn't convey some metaphysical value judgment, which is a term I haven't explained, but that's part of Ayn Rand's definition of art. A selective recreation of reality according to an artist's metaphysical value judgments. I think that's her definition of art. I could look it up to see if I got the wording exactly right, but I think that's very close. But I don't think there's any metaphysical value judgment, like about the nature of the universe. Is the universe a intelligible place or is it not intelligible? I think that would be an example of a metaphysical value judgment. Your view of the nature of the world is conveyed through art, or art is intended to convey a certain view of the nature of the world, such as whether you think it's intelligible or not. Like, are we caught in a world like the Scream of Edvard Munch? Um, you might think that's a representation of like a chaotic or a malevolent universe. Maybe more so malevolent than unintelligible is the dominant characteristic, where you're doomed to just, this is not a universe hospitable to human values and achievements. Um, that would be an example of a metaphysical value judgment. Whereas if you have a benevolent universe and you think success is possible, achievement is possible, happiness is possible, then that would be reflected in a different sort of painting, not something as anxiety ridden as the Scream, right? Um, Theo says fine art is a redundancy, but it is still art. Okay. Yeah, so I think Pollock, I don't think of him as art at all. In decoration, I'm not even sure about that, um, just because of the randomness of it. Uh, it's not like a pattern of like a checkered shirt or something you could say has decoration, but if it's just random smears, there's not really pattern to it, then I don't even know if I would call it decoration. Um, all right. Let me look at some of Ben Franklin's comments. Um, this one, I don't know if I want to read some of these. I think you might be being disrespectful, Ben. Why would you ask a question like that? Are you and I've before, I think at least a couple times I've thought about whether I should mute you or block you, but you make me wonder about it again now when you ask a question like that. I think that's disrespectful and pretty silly, ridiculous. So maybe I just won't engage with you. Um, Maybe I should mute you. At least I think I'll do that because I've never muted someone before. I've blocked people, but I haven't just muted them. Or actually, I guess it's called timeout. I haven't tried using that option before, but I think now is a good time to test that out. And I think it's going to give me a chance on how long I want to put someone in timeout. I have a choice of where did it go? 10 seconds, 1 minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes, or 24 hours. All right, I'm going to time out Ben Franklin for 5 minutes for asking this question at 4:32 p.m. Pacific. 5 minutes. Oh, it looks like it deletes the messages also. I didn't know it was going to do that. Maybe I should have copied them first. I wonder after the 5 minutes if it's going to make the messages appear again. I guess I'll see. What's now? 4:37, so I got to check it again in 4:42 at 4:42. Oh, this time I think the live chat replay should be available afterwards, as it normally is, but last time it wasn't. Okay, someone named Godspeed has come in here. I haven't seen Godspeed before, at least under this name. I'm just looking at Godspeed's channel. Reading a little bit of his description. I read half of it. All right, I'm not sure what to make of that, but I don't think I'm going to make you my moderator. At least not right now. Godspeed says you should just ban him and give me a wrench. I guess that means make him a moderator because I think that's a little wrench icon shows up if you're a moderator. I don't have any moderators. I just moderate myself. That's the way it is right now. And then he says, an objectivist, could this be? Yeah, I'm an objectivist. Is that surprising? Okay. Theo has another comment here. He says, I would define Jackson Pollock's paintings as decoration. Whether it is good decoration is a separate question. Okay. Well, then I wonder where you draw the line between decoration and non-decoration. Like, can anything be a decoration? Can I just any random thing on a canvas that's stuck on a wall, does that count as decoration? If the does whether something is a decoration just depend on its intention? Whether it's intended to provide something interesting to look at, or what? How would you define a decoration? Sorry, I maybe that means you think Pollock's smear paintings are not art, but you do think they're decorations. Well, I don't know if they would will they count as paintings? Because you might think paintings are a kind of art form, but if it's not art, if it's just decoration, then I wonder if they should even be called paintings. Or does something have to first qualify as art to be a painting, as opposed to just being paint or a decoration, maybe? Godspeed says, actually, yes. I guess that means he is surprised. Yes, he is surprised that, that I'm an objectivist because objectivists are a rare breed these days. I like Hoppe myself, but I jive with Ayn Rand, he says. Okay. Well, objectivists are certainly in the minority. I don't know how many objectivists there are in the world. Maybe tens of, maybe th probably at least thousands, tens of thousands, maybe. I'm not sure. I don't know if it's in the four figures, five figures, or six figures. Uh, kind of doubt it's more than that, like in the seven figures, in the millions or more. I don't know. But anyways, if it's certainly yeah, I think it's fair to say it's a rare breed. Although it's not genetic, so it's not a breed, it's an issue of ideas, which are not but I don't think you meant that literally. You say you like Hopi yourself, but you jive with Ayn Rand. I've never read Hopi or Hoppe. I'm not sure how you pronounce that. I've heard a little about him. I've encountered other people who are influenced by him, but I'm not really familiar with him myself. He apparently he came up with something called argumentation ethics, which I guess is some kind of. It seems like people sometimes use that to argue for what's called the non-aggression principle, that you shouldn't initiate force, but I'm not sure about that. But I remember people saying things like that, like about him. You jive with Ayn Rand. Have you read Ayn Rand's? Hmm. What makes you jive with her? And then Theo says paintings, and he puts paintings in quotes. So I guess he's saying that about Pollock. They're not really paintings. They're only paintings in scare quotes. All right. Well, it's been over 5 minutes. I don't see any new comments from Ben Franklin. Maybe he left. Maybe he decided if he can't be disrespectful, he doesn't want to participate. And so he left. But I only timed him out for 5 minutes, so he should be able to comment if he's here. I'm just unblocking his chats because after I timed him out, all his chats were blocked. I wonder if that's going to show up on the replay, like in the live chat replay after this. If um, think I want to copy his comments now just in case they don't show up later, so I have a record of them. Yeah, I'm just copying them into another file. And they appear in italics after I unblocked the deleted messages. I guess I could paste them into a comment below the video, even if they don't show up in the YouTube live chat replay. Oh, Ben Franklin is back. Okay. Um, all right. So we got some more here. I see we got some more people watching too. Thanks for coming by, additional people. And thanks for the likes on the stream. It's been a good week for subscribers. I continued to get some more subscribers since my last stream. Working my way up to 1,000. Actually, I realized recently, um, there's two different ways, I think, at least that I get revenue if I can monetize my channel once I hit 1,000 subscribers. Um, I think I can start getting ad revenue from my videos, but also I can take super chats. So, I forgot about that. So even if you know, not getting much I don't know how much I'm going to get from ad revenue. I don't know how that works, but in addition to that, however much it is, I can also take super chats. So that'll be great. I can make this self-sustaining financially. All right. So Theo says, yes, most things are decoration. We see decorative design in cars, jewelry, fashion, and so on. That is why it is important to distinguish between fine art and decorative design. But how would you define decoration? How do you distinguish decoration and non-decoration? So if it's just like a bare wall, right? You wouldn't call that decoration. But what if I now take a photograph of that bare wall, frame the photograph, and then put it on the bare wall? So now I've got a photograph of a bare wall on top of an actual bare wall. Is that decoration? Or does there have to be something more? Yeah, I just wonder about that. I wonder if counting something like Pollock, because like if you can't distinguish Pollock from someone who accidentally dropped a bunch of paints on a canvas, and then let's say you put this canvas on which you accidentally dropped paint, you frame that and you put it on the wall. Is that decoration now? Even though whoever dropped the paint accidentally on the canvas, he wasn't intending, let's say, to have it on a wall, but you come along and you frame it and then you stick it on a wall. Does that count as decoration? If so, then I wonder if it's just entirely determined by intention, in which case maybe it's subjective, it's an arbitrary. And then in that case, you might think it's invalid to think that something like Pollock counts as a decoration. But I would say like the sort of design you see in cars and jewelry, it doesn't have this aspect of randomness and arbitrariness that you see in Pollock's paintings. So um, I'm not sure they are in the same category. That is, the design in cars or jewelry or fashion is in the same category as something like a Pollock piece. And then Ben Franklin says she with a asterisk. So I guess that's meant to be attached to something else. I don't know what that means. She, her. I don't know what you're talking about, Ben Franklin. My word is that powerful. What do you mean that it's so powerful it made me time you out? Um, I, I guess you could look at it that way. I mean, it was thought it was bad enough that it was worth a timeout. I've certainly seen much worse, but um, in that, and that's why I block people. Whereas with you, I only timed you out for a few minutes, so it was a relatively mild penalty. But I wanted to do something. Maybe the penalty will increase if I see more of it. All right, Godspeed says, yes, I read Atlas Shrugged and seen the movie. What makes me jive with her is that she doesn't appeal to religion or even a pseudo religion. Okay. Yeah, she's definitely secular, as I say in the title for today's show. Ayn Rand's secular, pro-happiness, pro-capitalism philosophy is great. Yeah, she's not religious, not mystical. She's pro-reason, pro-evidence, pro-logic. And then Godspeed says, although Ayn Rand's got me into Hans-Hermann Hoppe and libertarian philosophy in the first place. Oh, okay. She's quite opposed to the libertarians because they're anarchists, or at least many of them are. They're anti-state. She's not anti-state, or she's not anti-government. She thinks there should be a government, but it should just be limited to the role of protecting people from force. Godspeed says, I'll bless you. Channels seem to blow up after I visit them and do the algorithm thing. All right. Well, hopefully, your blessing will help me. Drop your Cash App. YouTube is unreliable, is too unreliable. I do have PayPal. I don't know why you say it's unreliable. Actually, I have Patreon also and PayPal right now. So if anyone wants to, and I have a couple people who are patrons on Patreon, and they're linked actually in my description, I think. And they're also linked on my channel. So you can support me through those right now. Um, is it actually important to distinguish the two? Says Ben. Come on. I don't know what you're talking. Distinguish what? Um, art and decoration or what? I don't know. Um, Godspeed says, is a mural decoration or art? Uh, I guess it's maybe it depends. I'm not sure. Maybe it's a hybrid. Maybe it's some of both. Like maybe if it's representative, it's art, but if it's not, then it's decoration. I think that's I don't remember how Ayn Rand distinguishes decoration from art, but maybe it's actually let me go to the Ayn Rand lexicon, see if there's anything in there on I'm just going to search for the word decoration, see if anything comes up. Oh, decorative arts. Oh, that's interesting. Just the title, decorative arts. She says, maybe I should share this. Yeah, I'll share this screen since we've been talking about this for a while. So this is the Ayn Rand lexicon. The task of the decorative arts is to ornament utilitarian objects such as rugs, textiles, lighting fixtures, etc. This is a valuable task, often performed by talented artists, but it is not an art in the aesthetic philosophical meaning of the term. The psychoepistemological base of the decorative arts is not conceptual. So this term psychoepistemological has to do with the relation of the conscious to the subconscious minds. Like you see something and then it automatically makes you feel a certain way. You see something in consciousness and then the sight of that interacts with your brain or your neurons, whatever stored information is encoded in your neurons. It's not strictly speaking information, I think, but um, there's an interaction between what you're aware of consciously and then everything you have stored in your brain. And that interaction is what psychoepistemology studies. So if you are consciously aware of something, then it automatically makes you feel a certain way, whereas maybe it makes somebody else feel a different way. That's because not that because they're seeing something different, they're looking at the same thing in a given case, maybe, but because their brains are configured differently, the way they automatically react to it is different. Maybe they have different emotional responses to it. And that interaction between the mind and the brain or the mind and the subconscious is what psychoepistemology focuses on. In arts, I think they can highlight differences in people's psychoepistemologies in a way that I guess non-art doesn't do as much or not in the same way, I guess. But anyway, I just want to say a little on what this word means because you might not be familiar with it. It's actually a term that Ayn Rand coined, psychoepistemology. So she says the psychoepistemological base of the decorative arts is not conceptual, but purely sensory. Their standard of value is appeal to the senses of sight and or touch. Um, their material is colors and shapes and non-representational. Oh, non-representational. Yeah, that's what I was thinking might be important. Non-representational combinations convey no meaning other than visual harmony. The meaning or purpose is concrete and lies in the specific object which they decorate. Yeah, so with a mural, I think I was thinking, well, that's representational. So that might take it out of the category of just being decoration. And it looks like that might be what Ayn Rand would say, since she's saying, since he uses that term non-representational. So I guess I would consider a mural art. That's at least my tentative view, there's just one more paragraph here. As a recreation of reality, a work of art has to be representational. Its freedom of stylization is limited by the requirement of intelligibility. If it does not present an intelligible subject, it ceases to be art. So you might think that that rules out Pollock. It's not representational. It's not representing anything. It's not intelligible. Or um, on the other hand, a representational element is a detriment in the decorative arts. It is an irrelevant distraction, a clash of intentions. And although designs of little human figures or landscapes or flowers are often used to decorate textiles or wallpaper, they are artistically inferior to the non-representational designs. When recognizable objects are subordinated to and treated as a mere pattern of colors and shapes, they become incongruous. That's from our article, Art and Cognition in the Romantic Manifesto, which is this book here. So I highly recommend that book if you're interested in art. I think it's an amazing book. So many brilliant insights Ayn Rand offers. All right, so let me come back to the chat here. Oh, hi, John. He says late, but here. Some entertainment. Hello. I think you're also a new chatter. Let me see what the new chats say. Hmm. Oh, that was Godspeed who asked, is a mural decoration or art? I was thinking it was Theo. That was some entertainment says it's definitely subjective, talking about decoration, but comfort is relative to sanity in respects to psychology. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, after all. Sounds like a subjective view. Well, you say it's subjective at the beginning of your comment. So Ayn Rand's has she her philosophy is called objectivism, and she upholds objectivity in all branches of philosophy, aesthetics included. So I don't know if you've ever read Ayn Rand before, some entertain person who's going by the name Some Entertainment, but she has an objective approach and she defines the ways in which her approach is objective. Did I say she has a subjective approach? If I did, I meant to say she has an objective approach. And what that means, she spells out. But I I don't think she would say beauty is in the eye of the beholder. I think she would say it's something objective. It can be hard to define, but that doesn't mean it's subjective. All right, Ben says, so powerful you had to put them in a separate document. You misgendered me again. Why do you say that? Your name is Ben. That sounds like a male's name. Did I use the pronoun he? And you think that you want me to use a different pronoun for you? Um, an artist can tell the difference between a Pollock and a bunch of lines. You couldn't do what Pollock did. I see a bunch of hearts floating up now. 100%. Um, I don't know if that's from Ben in reaction to what I just said or what. You can let me know in the chat. Oh, should I oh, I'm still screen sharing. I gotta remember that. I don't know if I can see while I'm screen sharing whether anyone's called in. I don't think anyone's called in. I don't know if it'd show me though. I only have a small view of my Zoom window when I'm doing a screen share, so maybe it doesn't tell me if anyone has called in. But let me know in the chat, in the YouTube chat, if you call in, because then I'll more likely see it there. Um, an artist can tell the difference between a Pollock and a bunch of lines. You couldn't do what Pollock did. Color theory is an entire science as to how the eyes process colors. Mondrian art is organized, but just like Pollock, it is still decoration. I haven't heard of Mondrian art. I don't know what that is. A mural could be both. Depends on the context and the detail. I guess you mean both art and decoration. Depends on the context and the details and the artist's intentions by design. Ben says Dan short circuiting. Why do you say that? And then why do you say your next comment too? That again makes me start thinking maybe I should give you another timeout. And what about things like warning signs or traffic lights and such? Are they functional decoration? I don't think so. Hookham says keep it pushing. Ben Franklin says she sounds fun. Theo says decoration is the arrangement of colors, shapes, and textures separated from the entities that give rise to those attributes. Okay. Colors, shapes, and textures separated from the entities. So I guess that means it would be non-representational if they're separated from entities, because entities are like things, objects, people, animals, houses. So if you just take out aspects of those, like the shape of the house or the color of the house, that's what you're saying. Aspects of entities separated from the entities. Yeah, maybe that's consistent with Ayn Rand's definition. Just a different way to put it. To, a different way of expressing that decorations are non-representational. Are you not allowed to think for yourself or something? Why do you ask that, Ben? What are you talking about? Okay, here's another one from Ben. I think this was one I'm gonna have to at least time you out when you're talking like that, using profane language, or at least abbreviations of profane language. connected to the American flag. I don't know why you would use your profanity in conjunction with the American flag in the way you're doing there, but it makes me think maybe I should time you out again. Hookham says, "What do you mean, Ben? Nah, let me argue with him." Hookham wants to argue with Ben. Um, all right, maybe I'll let you go ahead and all right. I think this is just obnoxious from Ben. So this new one that just came in, yeah, new ones plural. Yeah, Ben's gonna get blocked. But I just want to copy these comments first. Put them in my other document. Where did that go? Oh, let me stop this screen share. Okay, here's my document. Yeah, sometimes some people deserve to get canceled. You earned it. All right, he's gone. Yeah, he's a troll. Lame comments. All right, now that I've filtered that junk out, I can spend more time on better comments. John Wayne says, I've literally been a monk. Oh, I guess you were quoting the person I just blocked. Then you have a laugh cry emoji. So I think the next one I was up to is from Some Entertainment. He says, before I go, I wanted to share my thesis regarding the fundamentals of the cosmic consciousness related to philosophy and a true theory of everything. It's still a work in progress, but open to the public. It's on my channel, and I have videos going over different aspects of it if you're interested in a different perspective. Take care and have a good stream. Thanks. Appreciate it. Thanks for coming by. I'm just going to your channel to take a quick look. You have a video titled, I Found God as an Atheist, and the results may trigger you. Okay. Okay. Hookham says connect the dots for Ben. Sometimes I don't think it's worth attempting to connect dots for people because I don't think they're serious. They're not really interested in truth. They're just trolls. And then you ask, Hookham asks, are you saying the American flag is art or it is considered art by people in chat? Maybe that was directed to Ben, that question, but he's gone. As for me, I don't know that I would consider the American fl or any flag to be art because it's not, I mean, it's a different kind of representation than like a person. I mean, it's a symbol. So in a sense, it's representing something. It represents the United States, but it's um it's a different sort of representation than like a painting of a person in the way that that represents a person where it actually looks like what you would see. So I think if it's just pure symbolism in the way a flag is, maybe it doesn't count as art. Maybe it's just a distinct category. It's not decoration either. Like I wouldn't call a flag decoration. It's not, the point of it is not to um, like make something prettier to look at. Some other Ayn Rand says the task of the decorative arts is to ornament utilitarian objects such as rugs, textiles, lighting fixtures. That's not what a flag is doing. It's not ornamenting something. It's just a symbol. So I think a flag is neither art nor decoration. It's just a symbol. It's at least that's my current view. Um, Theo says yes, decoration is non-representational, but decoration that attempts to be representational is still decoration. Uh, okay. Maybe it's just not good decoration. At least that's what Ayn Rand was saying. She was saying it detracts. It's what was her words? Um, a detriment. A representational element is a detriment in the decorative arts, she says. It is an irrelevant distraction, a clash of intentions, and although designs of little human figures or landscapes or flowers are often used to decorate textiles or wallpaper, they are artistically inferior to the non-representational designs, unquote. What do you think about photographs, says Hookham? I know Rand doesn't classify them as art. Yeah, I think she talks about photographs some in the Romantic Manifesto, and I think she says they're not arts because, but I guess they can become more art-like if they're very selective in how they're taken, because that's crucial to her definition of art. It's a selective recreation of reality. You're not just naturalistically reproducing everything. It's not a copy of reality. You're being selective about the elements of reality you reproduce, whereas a photograph just reproduces everything. Although I guess you can use certain filters or adjust the lighting in some way that you highlight certain features. So I guess a photograph could be more art-like the more selectivity is involved, but it's not enough selectivity, I think, to count as art full stop. Like it's like maybe the most you could say is that it's artistic, but you couldn't just say it's art. Theo says, for example, would you consider a representational quilting hung on the wall as fine arts? Um, I'm not, I forget what fine art, if you said that was just a redundant term for art. I'm getting thrown by this term fine. Um, Creative art, especially visual art, whose products are to be appreciated primarily or solely for their imaginative, aesthetic, or intellectual content. Mhm. Well, I guess fine art is distinguished from literature, right? Like painting, sculpture, architecture, would those would all be fine arts? They're all visual. Uh, but I don't know if I would consider a quilt, a representational quilt hung on the wall as fine art. So there might be some further characteristic you need in addition to being representational. So that might be a necessary but not a sufficient condition. But um, but I'm not sure. Like maybe it is art. I don't know. Theo says yes, not good decoration. Photos duplicate reality, art stylizes reality. Theo, you're interested in art, if I recall correctly. I think maybe you are a painter. I think might have seen that on your X profile. By the way, thanks for your retweets. I appreciate that. Or your reposts. I see those sometimes. Um, oh, it says romantic artists. That's your handle on X, at romantic artist. My passion is painting a sunlit universe, romantic realism in art, Ayn Rand objectivism, reason, egoism, individualism, capitalism, freedom. That's his bio. Hmm. Maybe even filtered pics is not art because it isn't general. Art represents what life is according to the artist, but not what they should look like, says Hookham. What about self-portraits? How similar are they to selfies? And then our last chat for now is from Hookham. He says, Theo, what do you think of the Loomis method? Never heard of it. I've never heard of it. Um, The Loomis method is a popular technique in art, particularly for drawing the human head, developed by illustrator Andrew Loomis. All right, so that's the last chat. I'm caught up in the chat. And it's been, when did I start today? 3:30? Oh, wow. It's almost been 2 hours. Theo says Loomis method is very good. It is what I learned from. Hookham says, see ya. I guess he's got to go now. Thanks for coming by. Appreciate it. All right. Well, this has been a very art heavy live stream. I think this is the most I've ever talked about art in a live stream. That's good because I haven't talked much about it before. I like to cover new topics sometimes. It's makes sense given that Theo is here. I think is he the one who kicked off this topic? Yeah, I think he was. Oh yeah. Yeah, he asked about where do I draw the line between art and non-art? That's what started all this. So main topics for today were art and then I guess the Twitter comments on immigration, did some of that. So maybe that'll also appear in my title when I retitle this stream. Any other topics people want to raise? I don't know how long I'm going to stream today. I guess it depends partly on you all. If we get into some good discussions, I guess I'll stay here longer. Oh, actually, I was thinking maybe I should take a break and try a new method of taking a break where I cut the stream from Zoom so that the break doesn't get recorded on YouTube. So if someone watches the replay of the live stream later, they won't have to wait through the break. It'll just immediately go to the segment following it. So if I do take a break, I'm going to try to use a new method of doing my break. I don't know if you'll be able to notice any difference on your ends. It might be just look the same as it always does for you, but at least on my end, it'll appear different. Maybe I'll do that just as an experiment, even though I don't really feel I need to take a break since I don't have any new topics coming in right now in the chat. Maybe this is a good time to experiment. Okay, yeah, I'll do that. I'm gonna try this new method of cutting off my Zoom stream and maybe I'll come back in about 5 minutes, see if there's anything else in the chat. If not, then maybe I'll just end the stream. If so, then and if it's a topic that's I want to engage with, I'll go on for longer. But I'm just going to turn off my mic and camera for a bit, cut the Zoom stream. I think this maybe it's not going to appear any different than my breaks normally do for you, but anyways, I should be back in a few minutes. And if for some reason I can't come back because the way I cut the Zoom stream ends the whole live stream altogether, I don't think that will happen, but if it does end the stream, then I'll just see you another day. Hopefully, I'll do a stream on another day, and this will just be the end. I don't think I would start a new stream today, but I don't think that should happen. I think it's just going to be a few minutes break here if you're watching live. All right, let me turn off the mic and camera, and I'll check back in a few minutes, see if there's anything else in the chat. All right, bye. Bye for now. Okay, I am back. Looks like the stream was able to reconnect as I expected it would. So now people who are not listening to this live, they won't have to wait through a several minutes long break. I think that's what's going to happen. Um, it'll just be a few seconds, I think, unlike my previous streams. And I guess if there is a break still, I could put in timestamps. That's what I usually do when I have a break to signify where it starts and maybe also where it stops. In the description, I can put timestamps, but um, this time, I guess I could still put a timestamp for a break, but the break will just be much shorter, I think. I'll find out soon after the stream. I'll test it. All right, so thanks for coming by. Maybe the people who were here before, they already left, but um, anyways, to those of you who had come by, thank you. And thanks for the likes. I see we got some more people back. Don't see any new chats, but I thought maybe what I could do is go through some more of the Twitter or X comments, maybe do at least a few more of those, and then come back to the chat and see if anything new has come in, and then engage with that if there is anything. All right, but let me go back to X and I'll share my screen again. And is this the right page? Yeah. Okay. So I want to give priority to people who are here live, but I don't see any new chats right now to engage with. So I'm just going to go to X, and then you can see my thinking process on how I do comments. And also I can engage in intellectual activism that way. So maybe maybe there's some value in doing a live stream of commenting like this. Um, all right, so I replied to this one here. I think that was the last one. Yeah. So let me go back to see if there's some more replies I could make. So this person says, I agree that illegal aliens should leave peacefully. I didn't say they should leave peacefully. I said they shouldn't be deported. So I think this guy might be trying to twist what I'm saying. He's saying he agrees with something that I didn't say. So I'm going to say I didn't. Say they should leave peacefully. I said it's irrational to deport peaceful people. And he may well know this, but maybe he's deliberately twisting what I said. But anyways, I'm just gonna say something like that. Irrationalism is good, says this person. Very human. Well, if you're at the level of saying irrationalism is good, then I don't know that it makes sense to try to reason with you or have a conversation with you. So should I just ignore that? Or maybe I can just say something like what I just said. Then maybe I shouldn't try to reason with you. Or maybe I'll say, I disagree, but if you think irrationalism is good, maybe I shouldn't try to reason with you. All right. That's if you Democrats, so here's someone who's calling me a Democrat, which is what Luis called out earlier. Here, Louise, he says, whatever happened to America? People answering here are just tribal, like angry beasts, and they think you're a Democrat. So if you oppose the White House or Trump, then some people automatically think you're a Democrat. And here's one that looks like that's one such person. If you Democrats didn't lie every time you open your mouth, you would have zero to say. Just stop your lies. Your party's done. I'm not sure I should engage with this one at all. She's accusing me of lying, and she's calling me a Democrat. So this might just be tribal vitriol, which I should ignore. I think I'm just going to block this one. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so it's now 5:48 p.m. Pacific. I think this might be a good time to end it. I don't see any new chats. Or viewers, it looks like the viewers have left. I mean, I could still record for people who view this later. Oh, now someone just popped in. Um, maybe I should go for at least 10 minutes until 6 p.m. Pacific and then end on the top of the hour. And then if, unless there are new people who jump in the chat and they want to engage, that's what I think I'll do. I'll go for at least 10 minutes more and then maybe end at 6 Pacific, unless I see some chats I want to engage with or unless somebody calls in. Okay, so I'm going to keep going through some more Twitter comments. So this person says, do you mean lawful lawbreakers? Because everyone that entered this country illegally broke the law. Say no. I mean peaceful people who break the law. Maybe I should say the unjust laws or irrational laws. Laws which make it too hard or impossible for many people to immigrate legally. For many peaceful people to immigrate legally. You are a criminal if you are in our country illegally. Deport, says Vicky. Maybe I'll just say the immigration laws are irrationally restrictive. And then I'll repeat what I said to the last person. They make it too hard or impossible for many people many peaceful people to immigrate legally. I'll copy that because maybe I'll use that again. Common common point. Enforcement of laws that these people violated by entering illegally is necessary. Illegal is illegal no matter the spin. And I'll ask this person, should you obey irrational, unjust laws, such as laws that would make you a slave? Now, I think some people might say, but these laws don't do that. They don't make you slaves. But that's not really the point. The point is, should you just dutifully obey the law, whatever it is? It's a hypothetical. And some people, I think they won't engage with the hypothetical because they sense where it leads. They sense that it shows the irrationality of their position, and so they try to get out of the hypothetical by maybe by making up some rationalization. Like, but that's not what this is. They're not being made slaves by the laws. That's not the point. That happened with another person who commented on this thread, who I eventually blocked because he turned disrespectful and at a certain point. That often happens. They squirm around for a while, can't engage with the argument, and then they say something disrespectful, and then I block them. Oh, we got some new chats from Godspeed. He came back. See what he says. He says, "Deport them all, ha ha ha. I'm the deporter in chief." And then he says something, he says he's being satirical. Well, that's good. I'm glad he's not serious. Otherwise, I might have to block. He says one has a moral obligation to disobey unjust laws. Taxation is extortion, therefore tax evasion is morally correct. 100%, he says. So you're an anti-taxes person? Are you a pro-capitalist person? Are you an anarchist? Um, I forget if you said you read Ayn Rand before. I think you said you saw. Oh yeah, didn't you said you saw you read Atlas Shrugged and you saw the movie? Was that you? Oh yeah, you mentioned Hermann Hoppe, Hans-Hermann Hoppe. Ayn Rand got you into Hans-Hermann Hoppe and libertarian philosophy. Um, so Ayn Rand was I mentioned before she was against libertarianism because it's anti-state. I wonder if you're anti-state. But let me come back to these. Maybe I'll do one more X comments, then it's going to be almost 6 o'clock my time. Oh, I replied to this one, didn't I? Yeah. This person says, no, it's not without explanation. Maybe I'll just say why, or I'll just do that, which means, can you elaborate? I'll, I'll make it explicit. This person says, if America is to survive, we need to deport all the aliens, and we need taxes to fund the basic functions of society. I see another comment from Godspeed came in. Let me just think of a reply to this comment on X first, then I'll look at what Godspeed says. If America is to survive, we need to deport all the aliens. Maybe I'll just quote that, paste it here. I don't know if this guy's a racist or what. I won't address the second part about taxes. I like to just do one point at a time. Sometimes it's hard enough just to get an answer to a single point, because I think people often they squirm around or try to evade sometimes. So I guess I make it harder to do that by just addressing one point. Oh, we got another person in the chat, Christian A. Okay, let me come back to the chat. Godspeed says, I like Hoppe. And yes, I am anarcho-capitalist. I'm not so much anti-state as I am pro-covenant communities, which I think are at least city-states. Okay. I don't think there can be anarcho-capitalism. I think that's a self-contradiction because I think capitalism requires a government to protect individual rights. And if you have anarchy, people's rights are not protected. But maybe we could debate that. Let me stop the screen share. And then he says, however, I don't think people ought to be forced to be obligated to a certain community because of the accident of one's geological location at birth, but be able to choose their communities. Maybe that's related to immigration. People should be able to move around. They shouldn't be forced to stay in whatever place they accidentally were born at. Uh, so Christian says you should call into Derek Dr. Derek McAllister when he is live. Never heard of that person. I'm going to Google him. I specialize in history of philosophy, especially medieval history of and philosophy of psychiatry, especially depression, human flourishing, virtue ethics. Oh, it looks like he was on a show that I've been on, Spotlight with Elijah Moore. I was interviewed once by Elijah Moore, and it looks like Elijah Moore also interviewed Derek McAllister. Does he have a YouTube channel? Maybe I'll check that out later. And Godspeed says, so if there is taxation in a covenant community, your membership is voluntary and not compulsory or automatic. Okay, I don't know if I would call that taxation. I might just call it membership dues. If there's no threat of jail, if you don't pay them, you can just move somewhere else. Whereas because I think the community is private property, at least the way I'm thinking of this example. Whereas I don't think a nation is private property, so there's no rights that the nation has to charge so-called dues just for being in the nation. Whereas if it were private property, then I think it could. Godspeed says, and I think private communities and protection/arbitration can fill the role of the states in providing justice, protection of rights, and resolving conflict. I don't think I've ever debated an anarchist in a video, at least. I did debate an anarchist once, but it wasn't on the topic of anarchy. We were debating mostly morality and the nature of self-interest, I think. There's a guy by the name of Last Username. That's how he goes, his screen name on YouTube. And I think he's an ANCAP, or he calls himself that. And we debated ethics or discussed ethics once, but I don't think I've ever done a video debating a anarcho-capitalist. Christian says he goes live on YouTube, takes phone calls from people who may want to talk about anything in philosophy, or, or who want to talk about anything in philosophy, may help with exposure. Okay, I'll check it out. Let me pull up his channel, Derek McAllister. Okay, I just found his channel. Maybe we can talk about Ayn Rand. I wonder if he's read Ayn Rand before. I wonder if he has a regular showtime. Okay, well, thanks for that reference. Looks like you might have had someone on recently who I recognize on his show. All right. Trying to think if I have more I can say to Godspeed now about anarcho-capitalism. Mhm. Oh, you think he goes live on Mondays? All right. Maybe I'll watch some of his channel and see if I can find out his time. So you see your pro-covenant communities. You're not so much as you're not so much anti-state as you are pro-covenant communities, which I think are at least city-states. I've never heard of that. Well, at least under those terms, pro-covenant communities. So is that just a voluntary arrangement of people? You say, I don't think people ought to be forced to be obligated to a certain community because of the accident of one's geological location at birth, but be able to choose their communities. So if there's taxation in a covenant community, your membership is voluntary and not compulsory or automatic. And I think private communities and production slash arbitration can fill the role of the state in providing justice, protection of rights, and resolving conflicts. And then you say yes, pretty much. I forget what that's an answer to. Um, so private communities and protection slash arbitration can fill the role of the state. I wonder if it's worth going to the topic of ethics rather than trying to debate this political issue. Like, I wonder what your view is about egoism, because I think ethics underlies politics, and maybe there's even deeper issues that might be relevant, like in epistemology. But you mentioned rights here, and that's what started me thinking maybe, because I don't know if you have the same view of rights that I do. And rights is a maybe not exactly an ethical topic, but it's I think Ayn Rand describes it as the bridge between ethics and politics. It's the concept of rights. So it's kind of on the border between ethics and politics. But I wonder if we have I wonder what your view of rights is. So if you're gonna explain your view in terms of rights, at least partly in terms of rights, then we need to be on the same page about that in order to not be talking past each other. So I wonder what you think a right is. On my view, following Rand, I think uh, your rights are defined by, in a way, they're defined by physical force. Like your rights are respected so long as physical force is not being initiated against you. And if physical force is being initiated against you, then your rights are being violated. So maybe to try to put it more positively, you have the rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I think your right to life is the basic right, and the others are aspects of that. To live, you need to have property, so you have a right to property that you earn, not meaning someone has to give you property, but you have a right to earn property. But that follows from your basic right to life. It's an implementation of that right. Because you have a right to life, certain other rights, like the right to property, follow. And physical force, the initiation of physical force is the only thing that can interfere with your right to life. Um, okay, you say rights are the powers one is justly entitled to. These powers come with responsibilities like all power. And then Christian A says rights are freedom of action in a social context. I think that's Ein's definition. I think that's close. I can actually pull up her definition. Going to the Ayn Rand lexicon. Individual rights, I think that's where it's going to be. Okay. She says, actually, this is probably a good screen to share. There it is. A right is a moral principle defining and sanctioning a man's freedom of action in a social context. There is only one fundamental right. That's what I was just saying. All the others are its consequences or corollaries. A man's right to his own life. Life is a process of self-sustaining and self-generated action. The right to life means the right to engage in self-sustaining and self-generated action, which means the freedom to take all the actions required by the nature of a rational being for the support, the furtherance, the fulfillment, and the enjoyment of his own life. Such is the meaning of the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So Godspeed, you say rights are the powers one is justly entitled to. I wonder what powers those are. What powers is one justly entitled to? A lot of people they think there are such things as rights to an education or rights to health care, rights to a vacation. There are all kinds of things that are claimed to be rights, which I don't think are rights. I think they're bogus rights. Um, like if you have a right to an education, does that mean someone has to provide you with that education? If so, what about their rights? Are they now your slave? Are you going to force them to be your teacher? How does your right to an education get implemented? Or your right to health care? Does a doctor now have a duty to serve you because you have a right to health care? If so, what about his rights to live his life as he chooses or she chooses? Okay. Godspeed says, well, life, liberty, and property, of course, and all other freedoms or rights can be derived from it. Although I think me and Rand are kind of saying the same thing. Okay. Well, she doesn't think anarchy is consistent with rights. In a society of anarchy, she thinks your rights would be violated. There would just maybe gang warfare would be a sort of society or sort of worlds in which anarchy was true. Or there might be a cycle between anarchy and dictatorship as like one group becomes powerful and conquers the other gangs. Then they become able to lord it over others, and then maybe there's a rebellion and someone overthrows the dictator, and then there's a disintegration into gang warfare again, and then one becomes powerful, and then there's this cycle of anarchy and dictatorship. I think that might be the way it goes. So, um, so I'm trying to see if there is a distinction between your view and hers, or if there is a distinction, like exactly where does the difference lie? Okay, you say Rand equates anarchy with lawlessness, and Hoppe defines anarchy as statelessness, where the rule of law truly prevails, but because no one is above the law, because no one can arbitrate on their own case. If she equates anarchy with lawlessness, maybe she does. Maybe that's a fair statement. It doesn't strike me as wrong, but so. Um, but then you say Hoppe defines anarchy as statelessness, where the rule of law truly prevails. So you can have law without a state, according to Hoppe, because no one is above the law, because no one can arbitrate their own case. Like how the FBI investigates itself and doesn't find any wrongdoing. So you say, on Hoppe's view, you can have rule of law with no states. Then I wonder about that. Who's Who makes the law? Who enforces the law? If there is no state, how can there be rule of law? Also, I don't, what is a state? I don't know if that's, maybe that's relevant. So I think sometimes it's defined as a, or at least a government. It's an institution with a monopoly on the the legal use, excuse me, a monopoly on the legal use of force in a given geographical area. That might be how Ayn Rand defines governments. And I think other people define it that way also. Let me go to her. Oh, am I still, I'm still sharing the screen. Let me go back to that screen. A government is an institution that holds the exclusive power to enforce certain rules of social conduct in a given geographical area. Now, what about state? Is that the same as government, or I don't know that there's a separate definition for states. Let me go back to the index here. State, no, there's not a separate entry for state, so maybe I just have to work with this. Huh. Would you agree with that definition of government, or could you also say a state is an institution that holds the exclusive power to enforce certain rules of social conduct in a given geographical area? Maybe I guess a state is a broader term. A state has a government. Uh, a state is run by a government. You say Hoppe treats state and government as synonyms. Okay. And you say, yes, an institution with a monopoly of the use of force in a geographic location. And Hoppe contends that such a monopoly is unnecessary and unnatural and only serves the criminal class. He proposes that instead of reliance on such a monopoly, there ought to be a multitude of institutions countering each other. Okay, so how is that different than gang warfare, or is that different? Because I think the objectivists will often say that that's what anarchy amounts to, gang warfare. So if there's not one institution with a monopoly on the use of physical force, then doesn't are there just going to be rival gangs and maybe a cycle between dictatorship and gang warfare? Or I guess it could just be every individual is taking the law into his own hands, or is making up his own law. So you just have a vigilante system. Everyone has their own private view of justice and can use force to enforce their own private view of justice. So I guess a gang is actually not the smallest unit here. Um, it's the individual, right? You could just have individual vigilantes, but they might find that they're more powerful if they get together with other people, and so they form gangs. So that might be a natural outcome. And then if one gang becomes dominant, then you have a dictatorship by that gang. Maybe like the Communist Party, or there's just a one party rule. All the other parties are suppressed. Thanks for the likes, by the way. See, we got some more likes. Uh, Oh, wow. 3 new subscribers. Great. I'm up to 925 now. I'm glad I stuck with this stream. Maybe that helped. I was thinking about ending it a little while ago, but decided to continue. I'm interested in this ANCAP conversation because I haven't really dug into this topic much. I'm just looking in my analytics to see if there's any comments here, new comments coming. Okay, Godspeed says more like private security and insurance companies with a multitude of private courts that arbitrate between the protection and insurance agencies. And there might be a system of payments between companies to decide what should be done with criminals and compensate victims. Okay. What about gang warfare, though? Why wouldn't it just be, or would it just be gang warfare, which I guess you could call it private security. You could say, I got my gang and that's my private security. So is private security just another term for my gang? Like if you hire private security today, um, I don't think it would be right to call it a gang because it's still under the jurisdiction of the government. So it's not like private security is in competition with the government of the United States or of the states. It operates within and under the jurisdiction of the laws. It's a private company. Um, but if there is no overarching government that has the ultimate authority on force, then it's I think it is more like a gang. So maybe it's a euphemism to call it private security if that if this private security so-called is not um, operating within under the authority of a government, if it's just making up its own laws and it's for enforcing its own laws, um, you say I could say the same about the government. Like, what's the difference between a gang and the government other than the perception of public approval? Well, it depends on the governments. I mean, there might be some governments where it's right to treat it as a gang. Like I was saying a bit ago with the Soviet Union, the Communist Party, that's the gang in control. And that's also the government of the Soviet Union, but it's not governed by laws. It's a government of men, not a government of laws. It's at the whim of the Politburo or whatever Communist Party. They don't have a system of objective laws. Um, whereas like the United States government, it's based on a constitution, and the idea was for it to be a government of laws, not of men. There's a so maybe to get the distinction between a gang and a government is to or a good government at least is to requires that we grasp the idea of objective law. So maybe that's a more fundamental topic we should discuss. What is objective law, or is there such a thing as objective law, or is it just all subjective, arbitrary law? On Ayn Rand's view, there are objective laws and there are non-objective laws. And to to have objective laws, you need to grasp certain things about human nature and what human life requires. Um, like freedom from force, not being coerced. There's also egoism in the background. What is the point of law, the point of rights? And if you have these sorts of ethical foundations in place, then that can define what objective law is, and then I guess eventually it can help define the difference between a legitimate government and a gang. Okay. Now we got some more comments coming in from Godspeed. He says the difference is you can opt out and buy a gun and live off grid, whereas the status quo that makes it impossible. And the US government isn't what? Okay, I think you're appealing to consent of the government governed, right? No. I don't believe in mob rule. It's not, whatever the people or the majority wants goes. I often like to give island examples, like to start discussing political issues because it simplifies things. It's just two people on an island, nobody else. That I think that can really help isolate the issues. And in that context, you can define what rights are, and then once you have that in place, well, I don't know if you can maybe at least start to define what rights are. I don't know if you can fully do it if there's just two people on an island. I think it's premature for there to be a government, but um, to at least start getting the idea of rights, I think it can be useful to consider that sort of case. So um, maybe we should try that. We should go to an island example. So imagine there's two people on an island. Maybe they were shipwrecked or castaways, and how should they deal with each other? There's basically two ways they can deal with each other: by force or by reason. So they can try to make each other their slaves, or they can cooperate and work together. They can appeal to each other's minds and try to persuade each other how to act. Like they can say, I'll work on building the shelter and you can work on catching fish. We can specialize. There can be a little division of labor, and maybe that'll help us survive. And then if we each try to do everything on our own, maybe we can each get really good at a certain kind of skill, and then we'll be more efficient at producing the values that our life requires. Um, or they can also choose not to deal with each other. They can just choose to survive independently. Um, they can each go to a different part of the island, let's say. But if they are going to interact and have a kind of social existence, then they can either deal with each other by force or in a voluntary way that respects each other's reason, each other's judgment, each other's choices. Um, so I guess it could be either better or worse than if they're just on the island alone to have another person, depending on what the nature of the other person is. So, like, if you're on, let's say you're on the island first, you're just trying to survive on your own, and you're able to do so to a certain extent. You're able to have some success, and then another person comes on the island. That can either make your life better or it can make it worse, depending on how that person interacts with you. If they try to enslave you or steal your stuff or destroy the shelter you've created, the property the uh, the values you've created. Maybe they try to break your spear in half that you use for spearing fish. That'll make your life worse. Or they can make your life better if they bring skills to the table that you don't have, or um, like I was saying, if there's a division of labor. So I think the best option would be if you cooperate in a voluntary way. And that way, I think you'll be better off than if you try to do everything on your own. Okay, so you say, uh, I think morals and ethics are subjective like value is and based on mutual self-interest. So if there's only two working together is in both parties' best interests. Okay. Well, if you think morals and ethics are subjective like value is, you say, then maybe we should talk about that because that's a more basic issue than politics. Like, um, because if your view in politics rests on your view of ethics to some extent, um, at least. But like it's a view of what is a good social system. Um, but what is your view of good, period? Like set aside a good social system. Just what does it mean to be good? That's an ethical question. So if we disagree about what it means to be good in general, then we're it's kind of premature to talk about what's a good social system. That already takes for granted that we have some idea of what good means, right? So you think anarcho-capitalism or whatever Hoppe's view is good, a good social system, whereas I think capitalism or a system with a that's not anarchist, that where there's a government that has a monopoly on physical force. I think that's good. But if we don't even agree on good yet, then we can't talk about what is a good social system. We're not on the same page yet about what good means. And we're not on the same page about what good means if you think good is subjective. I think it's objective, following Rand. So I think it's it's premature for us to be debating the right political system if we have different views of what the good is in general. Uh, so maybe we should talk about that. Like, why do you think morals and ethics are subjective? Or why do you think value is subjective? And what do you mean by subjective? I guess that's even more basic question. Like, is it if I think that eating rocks is bad, is that just a subjective view that I hold? Or is it objectively true that eating rocks is bad for me? And what does it mean? That's another question. Like, what does objective mean in addition to what is subjective? So I think there's often uh, going to be disagreement about those too. That like or just a lack of understanding. We might have different ideas of what it means to be subjective or what it means to be objective. So we have to see if we're on the same page about the meaning of those terms. So when you say, I think morals and ethics are subjective, what do you mean by that? Or what would be an example? Like, would you say the example I gave, eating rocks, is it is it just a subjective viewpoint to say eating rocks is bad? What do you think about that? Other people, you can chime in too. I've been talking with Godspeed, but um, anyone is free to join in if you'd like. Um, maybe he's typing right now. Am I still? What was I sharing? Oh, I'm still sharing Ayn Rand's view of government. Isn't that what I forgot I was sharing that. Good thing to share though, I think. Um, but I stopped the screen share now. If you want, you could call in. I don't know if that's better than just doing chat. Oh, okay. Here's a new comment from him. He says, morals and ethics are subjective because it is a value judgment. Like, for example, you value your life even if others don't. Do you, would you agree that it is immoral to aggress upon you? You believe this because you value your own life. I value my life as well, and I can easily work out that working with you in a mutually beneficial manner is better than aggression. Okay. Is it objectively better or is it just subjectively better? Is it just your subjective opinion that working together in a mutually beneficial manner is better than aggression? If you say morals and ethics are subjective, then does that mean that your view that working together is better than aggression is just your subjective opinion? If so, why should I accept it? I think if why should your can you persuade me? I mean, maybe that's part of objectivity is um, if something is objective, then you should be able to persuade someone else, whereas that it's true. Whereas if something is just a subjective opinion, then there's not really anything you can do to change someone else's mind about it, right? It's just like a feeling you have, and I might or might not share that feeling. It's just kind of accidental, whether I share your feeling. But if it's objective, then you can appeal to reasons to convince somebody else, which I think is maybe there's an element of that here when you say you can easily work out that working with you in a mutually beneficial manner is better than aggression. I think you're giving, maybe not stating the reason, but implying that there is a reason by saying you can easily work it out. You can easily explain it or give a justification for it. But if you can, then does that show it's objective and not subjective? Nathan Cross, hello, new chatter. He says, is it better in every case? Do you mean are you asking, is working together always better than aggressing against someone else? Is that what you mean? Well, I think the way you interact with someone depends on what kind of person they are. Like if if I'm alone on an island and then somebody else washes up on the island and it turns out to be a murderer, right? Someone who's been convicted of murder, but maybe he's escaped from jail or something and he washes up on my island. Well, now I'm faced with this murder, and in that case, it might be in my best interest to kill him. But that's an act of self-defense. It's not an act of aggression. It's actually an act of self-defense. If I preemptively kill him, at least if I have reason to think, like if he's a credible threat, if I know his nature, maybe he even tells me, I'm a convicted murderer and you're next, he says to me, right? If I have reason to think this person is a threat, then in that case, it's better for me to kill him first, because otherwise I'm going to die. He's going to kill me. But then I wouldn't call it aggression on my part. It's more like acting in self-defense, whereas I think the way aggression is typically understood is that you're being a initiator of force, or at least you're threatening force. I'm not sure if that's relevant to what you were thinking, Nathan, but um, you, you can let me know, or if you want to go in a different direction, you can. Godspeed says, what if I lose? Like, what if I am the one eaten instead? I don't know what you got. Well, there is some risk. Like if you're on an island and then somebody else washes up and you have no idea who they are, then You just have to decide. It's I guess maybe a more common example, which we're more familiar with, is you're walking down the street at night, let's say. Maybe it's three or four in the morning, so it's dark, and you're walking down the sidewalk, and then there's someone else who's walking the other way towards you, and you don't know who this person is, and you don't know if maybe they're completely friendly, maybe they have no ill intention, no bad intentions at all, or maybe they're some kind of criminal. So you might think, should I cross over to the other side of the street? Should I turn around and try to go home? You don't know what the nature of the person is. So, and it might be like this on an island, right? If somebody else washes up. Um, until you know the nature of the other person, it's not sure what the best way to engage with them is, if you engage at all. Maybe the best option is not to engage. You say discretion is the better part of valor. Not sure what you mean by that. What does that imply for the sorts of cases that I've been talking about, like the island case or the walking down the street at night case and seeing another person going towards you? And they also don't know who you are, right? So it goes the other way too. They also have to make a decision. And this happens with animals too, right? You see a cat or something and it doesn't know if you're a threat or not. So maybe it crouches under a car just in case you're you're gonna try to do something bad to it. It protects itself. But other animals, they they have different personalities. Some will come up to you and hope that you pet them. Um, Same with evasion. I'm not sure what that means. All right, it's 3 minutes to 7 my time. I might end it soon unless I I see some more chats come in that really engage me. Because I do have some other stuff I need to do. Uh, so I might end it in a few minutes. But I do appreciate this discussion. Thanks to everyone who came by. Not sure when I'm going to stream next. I've been doing more irregular streams recently. But if you're subscribed and click that notification bell, you will get some kind of heads up whenever I go live. I've got another video in the works, a pre-recorded video I might publish, a debate I did with someone. Maybe I'll release that before my next live stream. Godspeed says, all right, I'll probably have to call in next time. Maybe that would be a better show. Okay. Yeah, you can call in. You can also let me know when your availability is, because that could influence when I do a show. Um, because if I know you're going to call in, I'm more likely to do it at a time when you're available. You can also email me. My email's on my channel, theselfishnessproject@gmail.com. We can set up a time there, or you can just leave a comment on my channel. I'll also see it that way, or you can get in touch with me through X if you're on X. Um, or you can just randomly try to catch another one of my live streams. Okay. Well, thanks everyone for coming by. I am going to end the stream now. I appreciate the likes, the new subscribers, and all the chatting we did. Um, this was an interesting conversation for me. This conversation about anarcho-capitalism. So maybe we can continue it another time if Godspeed calls in. All right. Thanks everyone for being here. And thanks for people who are not here live but listen to this later. And I will catch you in another live stream, hopefully. Okay. Good night.